Hello, I'm psychologist Yulia Latunenko. Today, our topic is about narcissistic personality disorder. Let's talk about what narcissists hate. I think this will be interesting for people who have been or are currently in relationships with individuals with narcissistic disorder. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please do so. Click the subscribe button. Don't forget to like this video and leave a comment. Let me know if you've been in a relationship with a narcissist and how you feel now after being in such a relationship, if you've managed to leave it. So what do narcissists hate? Let's figure this out today. And the first thing I want to mention on this list is the feeling of shame. Narcissists hate experiencing this feeling. But the problem is that narcissists unpredictably fall into this feeling very quickly. This is the most accessible emotion for a narcissistic person. Why? Because narcissistic trauma is connected to low self-esteem. Narcissistic trauma is the profound and pervasive feeling of being an utter failure, the deeply unsettling feeling of being a complete nobody, the overwhelming and persistent feeling of being entirely inadequate to meet society's often demanding expectations. It's a constant, agonizing experience of profound shame for simply being the person I inherently am. And a person carries this feeling from childhood into their adult life. Of course, people with narcissistic disorder don't realize this. They are not aware of this feeling, and they don't notice the moment when they fall into it. That's why they do everything, absolutely everything, to avoid falling into the feeling of shame, to avoid experiencing disgrace. Disgrace for them is equal to death. That's why such people avoid situations where they could fail, where they might do something that doesn't match their own ideal self-image. That's why there are two types of narcissistic people. These are the ones who, in order to avoid shame, push their way to success over others, as they say, with no regard for anything sacred. And the other category of narcissists are the ones at the bottom. These are the people who remain failures, who avoid doing anything because they're so afraid that nothing will work out for them. And these are covert narcissists who are always complaining, for whom things always go wrong because there's always some external reason. It's never their fault. They specifically avoid shame, failure, and mistakes. They don't allow themselves to get into such situations where they might look ridiculous, where, in their opinion at least, people could judge them negatively. Because for such a person, shame is an extremely toxic experience. That's precisely why narcissists intensely hate shame, and they absolutely detest situations where they might potentially appear as complete failures in the critical eyes of others. They hate situations where other people can see their mistakes, their failures, their lack of success. That's why they will avoid such situations at any cost. Shame is the most destructive emotion for a person with narcissistic disorder. Therefore, if you find yourself in a relationship with a narcissist, avoid situations where the narcissist might experience shame. Because in such a state, when he thinks he is a failure, or he appears to others as a failure, he becomes very toxic, aggressive, passive-aggressive, or openly aggressive. But the problem is that you can never predict such a situation because the narcissist is constantly bombarded by shame. Even in situations where you couldn't have guessed he might experience it, he can fall into such states where he becomes passive-aggressive, where it seems to him, and I want to emphasize the word seems here because he is a traumatized person, that people are laughing at him, that he looks like a failure, that he has lost. That's why narcissists are very competitive. They compete with everyone, even with their own partners in relationships. If the narcissist is a man, he will constantly argue with his wife to prove that he is more important, wiser, smarter, and more attractive. He is different. If the narcissist is at work, he will compete with his colleagues. And all his pain will revolve around how he looks in the eyes of management if we're talking about work. How I look in someone else's eyes, whether I'm losing or not. That's why narcissists compete ruthlessly and sometimes very deceitfully. The second thing narcissists hate is not being in first place. They always want to be leaders. And when in some group they feel that someone else has taken the role of leader, not them, or they didn't manage to do it in time, or someone else won in leadership, someone more interesting, someone brighter, more charismatic, the narcissist will feel very bad. And of course, they will either leave such a group or they will start devaluing, become passive aggressive, may openly belittle the leader of the group, or later go and, for example, tell their friends or their partner what a loser this leader is. In other words, they will devalue. Well, and in extreme cases, a narcissist, if their aggressiveness allows, they might pull something at a party or in a group where they are not in a leading role. They might do something to draw attention to themselves. They really love attention and recognition. That's why secondary roles are hateful to them. And third, what a narcissist hates is listening. They can't listen. Their attention is focused on themselves. They love to talk. So if you end up with a psychologist who can't listen and tries to talk more than you do, that's a narcissistic psychologist. If your friend doesn't listen to you and constantly shifts the attention and conversation to their own problems, that friend is narcissistic. They hate it. They hate listening and hate giving attention. They want to take attention and recognition. They love approval. They love attention. They love it when people look at them with admiration. And if they can impress people with their actions or their character traits, then they impress with their victimhood. They whine, they suffer, they're great sufferers. This is exactly the category of covert narcissists, the failures who feel their greatness in their suffering. The fourth thing that narcissists hate is being wrong. They are always right. Well, you already know this because they love to repeat that famous phrase, I told you so, or I told you, if it's a female narcissist. That's why they actually wait for their bad predictions to come true. And if you didn't take their advice, they'll be quick to tell you that phrase, I told you so. They absolutely adore themselves and they believe that only they possess the truth. Only they know what's right. They don't even realize that people, for those who listen, what is right for a narcissist may be completely wrong for someone else. Because we are all very different. We have different paths, different stories, different opportunities, different internal and external resources. That's why you can't say that someone else knows what's right for you. No psychologist knows how you should live your life. A psychologist can only help you to reach the point where you understand yourself and what is right for you. But a narcissist, they know what's right for you, what's right for me, what's right for everyone else. They know everything better than anyone. So if they feel they're in the wrong, there will be manipulation, gaslighting. That never happened. I never said that. You made it all up. There will be everything, twisting facts, changing the chronology of events. And all of this is aimed only at proving to themselves that they're right and that they know what's best. And now we'll continue the list of things that narcissists hate, and as always, right in the middle of the video. Let me remind you that if you find yourself, if you're in a relationship with a narcissistic person, or your parents were narcissistic, or you've just gotten out of such a relationship, of course, it's very traumatic for you. If you attract narcissistic people into your life, it only means that you need to expand your awareness. You need to work on your childhood traumas. So, moving on. They hate partnership. Yes, they want to be in a couple, but they want to be the main one in the couple. They can't stand equal relationships anywhere. This applies both at work and in close relationships. They only build vertical relationships where they are on top and you are on the bottom. It's a patriarchal model of relationships where he is the big daddy and you must obey and listen like a child. If that doesn't work, then the narcissist will offer you the role of mommy or daddy and will be underneath. In other words, in equal partnership-based relationships where there is dialogue, such relationships do not suit the narcissist. He hates them. He doesn't know how to be in such horizontal partnership relationships. The sixth thing that narcissists hate isn't a thing, it's people. They hate those who are smarter, wiser, more attractive, or more successful because such people make them feel envious. They don't know how to be happy for the success of their friends or their partners. They can't even be happy for the success of their own children. They are always comparing themselves to others. And ideally, they want that comparison to be in their favor. So when it's obviously not in their favor, they hate those people and feel intense envy toward them. And finally, the last group or category of people that narcissists hate is psychologists. Narcissists hate psychologists because psychologists spread very toxic knowledge that can be used by people who find themselves in relationships with them. And they also devalue the work of psychologists, saying that they're charlatans, questioning what they even thought, where psychologists studied, and claiming that these people are in charge. They're close ones because they want to be in control. For them, psychologists are competitors who can influence their close person, and that person might break free from the control, from the hypnosis of the narcissist. That's why psychologists are very dangerous people for narcissistic individuals. That's why they don't show up in therapists' offices. They don't ask psychologists for help because they think they know better. They can handle their problems on their own by themselves. No matter how unhappy they are, they still won't seek help because to them, that's a sign of weakness. That's being beneath someone. That's asking for help and admitting their helplessness. By the way, it can actually be very helpful when a person acknowledges their problem and admits their helplessness and turns to a professional for help. But narcissists will never do that. They might pretend to be going through psychotherapy because it's trendy, but they actually hate psychologists. In the end, they devalue them. It didn't help, or they say that the psychologist actually needs a psychologist themselves. That's what they always say. That's why psychologists are dangerous people for those with narcissistic personality disorder. And finally, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Give this video a like if you enjoyed it. Click the subscribe button and also the bell so you'll be the first to know when my new episodes come out. And leave a comment of more than 7 words to support this channel. I will be very, very grateful to you. Also, share my videos on social media. This will help me and my channel continue to grow and gain more and more subscribers.